A reading from the Gospel according to Luke. When the days drew near for Jesus to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. On their way they entered a village of the Samaritans to make ready for him, but they did not receive him, because his face was set toward Jerusalem. When his disciples James and John saw it, they said, "Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them?" But he turned and rebuked them, and then they went on to another village. The word of the Lord. In order to understand a little bit of what's happening in this story, and I think to help us understand why Jesus' response is important, you need a little backstory. This is a particular time in the history between the Samaritan and Jewish people where there is just such an entrenched animosity. And there's historical reasons. The Samaritan people were the people of the northern kingdom of Israel. They had been conquered by the Assyrian Empire in the 700s BC. And when they were conquered by the Assyrian people had intermarried and intersettled among the Israelites. And so in many ways, the Israelites and the Assyrians were mixed with one another. And to the people of Judah, the southern kingdom, to the people of Judah, this was incredibly threatening. You see, part of Judah's whole survival was wrapped up in this idea of purity of identity. You see, they themselves, before too long, 100+ years later, would find that when the Babylonian Empire came and conquered the Assyrians and then also conquered the kingdom of Judah, what you saw happen is they were under the threat of their identity being extinguished. They were also going to be intermarried and literally bred out of existence. And so the people of Judah, the Jewish people, in order for their very survival, were trying to resist the idea of having their identity diluted by things like intermarrying and the mixing of different cultures and different religions. So everything that the Samaritans had become was threatening to the Jewish people. And then likewise, because of all this animosity sent their way, there was no shortage of animosity sent from the Samaritan people back to the Jewish people. And it had become entrenched to the point here where you see Jesus stepping in and trying to stand in this place of going out to the Samaritan people and extending his ministry out to them, a ministry of inclusion. You're no longer separate from me. You're no longer excluded from me. I want to include you, encompass you in my love, in my healing, in my teaching, in my movement. And at least in this moment, kind of neither side can get on board with it. The Samaritan people reject Jesus. They turn him away. And then you see the Jewish people, Jesus' disciples, James and John, they just want to rain down fire upon the Samaritans. They have no interest in extending themselves. So neither side is willing to bridge that divide, even though Jesus is in that moment trying to bridge the divide. What I see Jesus not doing in this moment, when it doesn't work in this moment, Jesus doesn't throw up his hands and say, well, fine, you're dead to me. You're not willing to accept me, then fine, I'm cutting you out. That's not what Jesus does. He doesn't rebuke them. If anything, he rebukes James and John for trying to cut them off. Jesus remains committed to the idea of the Samaritans being included. He remains committed to the idea of the reconciliation of God's people. And even if they're not ready yet, and even if they're still pushing back against it, Jesus isn't going to give up. And we see Jesus makes a great point about using the story of the Good Samaritan to point out that even the Samaritans should be included among the beloved neighbors whom we should love. and they should be the ones that we are their beloved neighbors, and they love us. I hope a little bit of what we can see in this is that even when we face times in our own lives where our differences are leading us to entrenched animosity against one another, and even if you find yourself in the place where you're trying to extend an olive branch or trying to be inclusive, and if at first you get pushed away or the doors shut in your face, don't give up. Don't throw up your hands and let it stop you from trying to be inclusive and compassionate. Continue to be that person to try to extend love, even if at first it's not accepted, because it's in that way that you are trying to have a broader, more expansive idea of who we love as our neighbors. And that way we'll be continuing the work that Jesus is trying to do here in this moment. Thanks be to God. Amen.